Yeah, I don't know why I always start with a. It's because I take a deep breath. I'm plunging myself into something that I'm not sure if it's going to go well, if it's going to go poorly. Am I going to say something dumb again? I almost always say something a little dumb, right? And, it's almost like I'm facing a rival. Something that on paper, it's almost like on paper we go into this game and we're like, we should win. I've done streams before. I might not necessarily know what I'm talking about, but I sure have the confidence to do it, right? I've studied enough stuff. I've watched enough tape. We've played the Rams enough, right? I should be able to talk about the Rams and the Seahawks and Sean McVay and Pete Carroll and even Jeff Fisher and all that, but you can never be sure, can you? Because for some reason, even in the LOB era, whenever Pete Carroll and company would go in and play some random quarterback, with some beat up offensive line, they'd roll in with Zach Stacy and find a way to win, or at least make it a sweating game. And then they get Sean McVay, and it has been brutal for some very simple reasons. They play really good football, very sound football, and then they get really good talent on top of that. Just good scouting. Before, the part of the problem was that they just kind of just like would fail in scouting, but every once in a while they would hit on some amazing talent like Brockers and Quinn and obviously Aaron Donald but they would hit on Gurley, but length of time. And so kind of what happened is Goff failed immediately. And then McVay came in. He had a system that was specifically designed to make things as easy on the quarterback as possible. People called him a genius. And hold on, I think I need to up my bit rate just a little bit. See what I'm talking about? I haven't had bitrate problems until specifically starting the Rams stream. It's always one thing after another, isn't it? But his system that everyone says is a genius system is just the West Coast offense with some more motion so that they can tell if it's a zone or a man scheme beforehand. It's just growth of the West Coast offense. We're just going to have to ride with it. It's been looking fine. And that's kind of how we've had to go against these Rams teams, is that we just kind of have to ride with it. Because McVay knows the history of football and knows why things need to be done. And then he does them. And then he finds players that can do things that specifically fit in a system that make the West Coast system work. So you often see, like, I want this crazy athletic player that can do this very specific thing. And, the Rams specifically, they had, like, Austin. And Austin was a very athletic player that could only do a very specific thing. It's like Cordell Patterson, very athletic player, can only do a specific thing. But then you look at Cooper Kupp. Nobody saw Cooper Kupp coming. You look at Puka Nacua. Nobody saw Puka Nacua coming. Even Atwell. You put in Woods. He's a route runner. And it doesn't matter. as long as you just do your job in a West Coast system. You get to your spot at the right time, then you get to the next spot at the right time, then you get to the next spot at the right time. And you just make things as easy for the quarterback as possible. And he described, and I have a link for it in the video, in the description below. It was an interview between Steve Smith from the Panthers and Ravens, and Hall of Famer, and then I think he's in the Hall of Fame. He should be. And then Rich Eisen. It was on the Rich Eisen show, and it was, I think, in 2017. Maybe it was in 2019. But McVay was being interviewed, and he was being asked about how to make things easiest on the quarterback. You're going to love this. One of the things he talked about was, of course, knowing what the strengths are of the quarterback, like what type of throws they're comfortable making, get rid of the throws they don't like. But also he noted where on the field they play best, which hash mark they like to play on. What have I been talking about, y'all? I've been talking about hash marks and field positions for weeks. For weeks. Because he knows that if you can get a quarterback that likes to throw things into like the far side flat, that then you can just start dumping it to the far side flat all the time and you open the check over there. He knows that, okay, this quarterback likes to throw slants, but you need to give him space on the weak side. Like if Geno Smith, for instance, if we're having problems getting slants to DK, which is a bread and butter play, maybe the problem is where he's lining up in the hash marks. Since DK is on the wide side, maybe the problem is that he's too far away to hit DK with the slant. So we need to be throwing those when Geno's on the weak side as well, so that he's closer to DK. And it means that DK doesn't need to run as many steps, and that means that Geno doesn't need to throw as far. Who knows, right? You need to look at the tape. You need to know about the player and all that stuff. That's what Sean McVay is saying. So this brings up the point of today's stream, which is game planning for Seahawks Rams. Yesterday was Tell the Truth Monday. And as I've gone over before, you focus on the immediate now. There's no such thing as Commander Seahawks anymore. Today is all about coaching. Players don't do anything on Tuesday, but the coaches come in and they wear themselves out. This is crunch time, right? Anyone who's ever worked in the gaming industry would know about crunch time. Anyone in the film industry, you got 6 months worth of stuff to do, and you got to do it in 60 hours. Well, the Seahawks, they have to do a week's worth of film study, and they got to do it in 20 hours. I'm sure that Clint Hurt and company make everyone else go home, but even Clint Hurt has confessed that he stays a little too late at the office. So we're going to be looking at this tape, and I'm going to say that based off of what Sean McVay just said, I think I know how they're going to attack our defense when they play us. Let me see if I have it. It's on my desktop. That's where it is. The problem I'm having some weird bitrate problems. I think it's because it's windy or something outside. I don't know. Where is this thing? I have the next gen stats. I also have the link to that in my description. I did save it. Maybe it's in my images. guess I'm just going to have to risk it, and hopefully this doesn't crash. Here we go. I have the next gen stats from Matthew Stafford. I have the link to it in the description below. You are more than welcome to check it out yourself. Otherwise, I am going to show it in just a moment after I pull it up, and I will share it on my screen for you. I was supposed to be prepared. I've been getting a little bit better at this, but it's just not what I want. Okay, so let me do a share screen, and here we are. Let me just make sure that it is actually being shared on my end. It should be. Okay, so Next Gen Stats, I highly recommend it. It is a good place for raw data. And what I want to show you is in this right-hand corner, this is week 1 versus the Seahawks. And what you might notice, this is the correct year, right? Yes, this is the correct year. What you might notice is that this is all short stuff. Most of his stuff is short and in the middle. And the problems we were having, aka, first of all, we didn't have we didn't have Jamal Adams in this game. And we didn't have Witherspoon in this game. And Julian Love was having a rough game. And I don't think Jordan Brooks was back in this game. We didn't have Williams in this game, but they had Kareem Williams, who was their running back, who was out for the season. So he was responsible for a bunch of these. They also didn't have Cooper Kupp. But again, all of this short stuff in the middle. That's what's important. And the reason it's important is, as we discussed on Monday's show, what the Seahawks currently have in DVOA against the pass, deep passes, the stuff up here, they're ranked 8th against the pass. They're doing really good. The stuff down in here, 10 and under, they're ranked 30th. So if Puka, Nacua, and Atwell and Henderson, the running back who's taken over, they're not throwing to running backs. But in this game, because we're ranked 30th in DVOA, McVay is going to be looking at this tape and going to be looking at week 1 here and being like, well, the way we beat him week 1 was a bunch of this stuff underneath within 10 yards. And then, yeah, we had some explosives, but not really, because explosives are 15 over. So how many completions did they really have over 15? Well, let's not count this, because that's like, what, 16? Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. They had four explosive passes. So the rest of it was fairly contained, but it was all this little stuff underneath. And so we just couldn't clear it up. And so, yeah, we got Witherspoon and we got Adams. But a lot of these were just broken tackles. Because this isn't even including the yak. These aren't the yak charts. These are where the balls were caught. I don't have you the chart for that. This isn't including Puka taking off down the field. Because if you notice, Matthew Stafford didn't score any touchdowns. They were rushing for touchdowns in this game. Yeah, so expect a lot of stuff underneath, because McVay's going to look at week 1 and he's going to look at our defense and be like, they're not tackling in short yardage situations. They can't tackle for shit in short yardage situations, and they can't pass coverage for short yardage situations. as we discussed yesterday with our pursuit angles. And if you think that we can adapt and fix ourselves in a week, I would love for that to happen. This is a great opportunity to do it because this is the type of team that wants to do that. And with Puka, Nacua, Atwell, and Cooper Kupp, that's a hell of a trio. And Higbee at tight end. I don't like the man. He's basically their only tight end. But he's going to be playing tight end, and he's going to get targets, and he's going to catch the ball. So get ready for probably 2 or 3 targets to Higbee. Like 35 yards. Anyways, yeah. So, but they got a great set of 4 receiving targets, and then they ran out of running backs. But Henderson is going to be okay, running the rock. It's just not the way that they're going to come out and attack us. But considering how bad we've been at in short yardage, they might just be like, Henderson, today's the day. So let's go back a page. Let's make sure that this is actually, this is sharing. Okay. Let's look at where Stafford is throwing his touchdowns. Well, the last 4 weeks, he was throwing them outside the sticks, and then on the very outside. So I wouldn't expect. So, here's an example. This is Woolen in coverage. Woolen and Diggs. Over here it would be Trey. Over here would be Trey. Down here would be like Bobby and Julian Love. Down here would probably be Brooks and Witherspoon. Because Woolen would be cleared out. It depends. It's just interesting to look when you look at where the touchdowns are, who he'd be targeting on the field. So when you look at where he's throwing these touchdowns, he didn't throw touchdowns in week 1. And in week 1, a lot of the defensive backs he'd be throwing against, they're not starting anymore. Because I think he was throwing against like Jackson. Was Woolen even starting in week 1? I don't remember. And if you look, the only game all year he didn't throw a touchdown was week 1. And gradually he's started to throw interceptions more. Other than week 6 and week 5, who, if I take a peek, we can see who they played week 6 and week 5. This is courtesy of Pro Football Reference. Okay, so week 6 they played the fucking Cardinals. Week 5 they played the Eagles, so he didn't throw any picks against the Eagles, but they did lose 14-23. So yeah, I just thought this was really interesting. We also have his hot map. And this is where who he's throwing against is going to be the most interesting. He is throwing best. And this, again, goes back to the initial conversation I had about Sean McVay and him trying to put his players in position where they're going to be throwing where they're best suited. This is Woolen's side of the football field. Woolen and Diggs. If that's his best side of the ball, and Woolen is kind of having a year, is he going to just... Stafford's not afraid of anybody. Is Woolen going to get cooked against Matt Stafford? And I think that's Puka's lane. because Kupp is the slot guy. So is Puka and Woolen gonna fucking battle all day, or is Woolen gonna shut Puka down? He's not hitting anything on that right side. And that's Trey's lane with Julian Love over the top. But all this stuff in the middle, that's short middle, right? He's going to eat us alive. He's going to absolutely eat us alive. And these screens on the left side, yeah. And we've already noted that we have trouble on the right side as well. He is going to absolutely eat us alive. So even Sean McVay might say, yeah, we're really good here. We'll let you have it. Because if we can clear Woolen out over here, then we'll just keep eating you alive right down here. Fuck it. Death by 1,000 cuts. And then when you like drag a safety over as Woolen gets cleared out, it'll open up this spot over here, which we know that you have trouble with, like an out or something, and we'll just pop this 80. He's gonna eat us alive right here in the middle. I don't see even, unless Jordan Brooks and Witherspoon can hold off this middle, or Jordan Brooks and Adams. Because I want Bobby making sure that this and this are taken care of. Right? He's in this middle lane. And these gaps here need to be controlled by Adams and Brooks. Like, this needs to be stopped. A little bit more than this lane needs to be stopped. Woolen needs to do his job. But this... You ever play chess? Like, I know people have played chess, but have you ever played chess? Like, sit down and study? You need to control the center box. You need to control the center box of the board. And, yeah, this is how it's fucking done. They're not controlling the top middle, and they're controlling the left lane, but they're controlling the whole center. And so their queen, right, their king, can do fucking whatever he wants. It's a beautiful thing. And this is dangerous, because then you can decide it whatever side of the field you want to throw to, because everyone's crashing to try to stop this. And you got to stop this middle spot, because otherwise, the defense can't dictate what side of the field is limited. You want to try to make the quarterback be like, well, I either have the blind side or the visual side, this being the blind side. And look at how strong he is on the blind side, which is supposed to be the hardest side to throw to. It's supposed to be it's supposed to be inverted. This side is supposed to be green, not the other way around. But he's killing it. And it's because, they need to give as much help there as possible. And the safety is probably trying to cheat to open up this hole. And it's just, yeah, right. So we need to make sure Woolen can handle it. Diggs can stay over the top. And it all starts by making sure the center of the board is taken care of, the center of the field, because that will kill us on Sunday. That's dangerous. That's so dangerous. Do I have anything else about the Rams offense versus our defense? We talked about the shoestring tackling. Make sure you wrap up, because part of this 107 is because they're making guys miss. Puka, Nacua, and company, they're just sliding by people like butter. You got to get the right pursuit angles, because they're going to catch the ball. But make sure that this 4-yard catch doesn't turn into a 15 or a 13-yard catch. just, hold the line. If they're going to do death by 1,000 cuts, make sure it's 1,000 cuts, not 10 cuts. All right. And again, I have the links to all of that below, including the Pro Football Reference. Our football turf is starting in about 15 minutes. And I try to support those ladies. So I'm going to try to get through this second part of this quickly. Don't worry, I will continue to post videos talking about the Rams as the week goes on. I'm also trying to schedule an interview with a Rams fan. They're finicky. It's also hard to find Rams fans. Just period. So here we go. Their defensive coordinator is Raheem Morris. Suddenly my page is filled with ads. This is not recommended for me. At any rate, he's running a 3-4 front, which is, kind of what ours was supposed to be. Not quite. It's supposed to be a light front, and it's supposed to open up the outside linebackers and let them have an opportunity to blitz at the quarterback. He wants to be really aggressive, and especially since they have Aaron Donald, he's already naturally creating a lot of pressure. They wanted to try to use these outside linebackers, since they lost Brockers, who is next to Donald, to create pressure on the outsides of Donald so that he could have opportunities on the inside to get to the quarterback. Or at the very least, if there's pressure on the inside double teams, because he's always getting double and triple teams, that those outside guys face one-on-ones instead of doubles and can angle outside and get to the quarterback on his 5th and 7th steps. And it's been hit or miss. I wouldn't say it's been effective. And in fact, it might be stunting Donald's career. I'm not sure. And I want to cover that a little bit. Again, I'm using references from Pro Football Reference. Let's just go over their total sacks for the year. So Aaron Donald, he's having a pretty steady season. For, not a legendary season for Aaron Donald, but good. He's at 5.5 on the year. And we're just a little over halfway through the year. And when you look at the offensive linebackers that are the starters, Young and Hoyt, I believe I said that right. Young has 5 sacks. Hoyt has 3.5. And then the nose tackle has 2 sacks, and then there's a couple sacks across the board. But that's basically their starters. And the problem is they only have 19 sacks on the season. Now we just played the Commanders, and that man Sam Howell was sacked 44 times in the season before we played him. And Geno Smith, I think, let's actually find out. Let's get the exact number of times Geno Smith has been sacked. He's been sacked 19 times on the season. So he's not even half the amount of times as Sam Howell. In fact, he's been sacked the exact number of total sacks that the Los Angeles Rams have. So he's even considering that. He hasn't had a healthy offensive line all year until this week, because Abe Lucas apparently is expected to start. So he's going to have all 5 of his starters for the first time since the Rams game, when all of his starters got hurt in the middle of the game and it was chaos. So who's to say? And I'm actually curious. Let's look at this box score. Let's just take a look. How many sacks in that game, while our offensive line was literally falling apart, did these Rams get against us? 2. So 2 of their sacks came when our offensive line was losing its tackles. So they have had 17 sacks. And we've had 17 sacks since this last encounter. If Geno Smith faces Aaron Donald and he only gets sacked 2 times, that's a good game, right? He lost his offensive line. He lost both his tackles. Only got sacked twice. Sure, he threw for 112 yards, but he only got sacked twice. It's a little impressive. Russell Wilson used to get sacked like fucking 5 times. I'd live with 2 sacks. I think Geno Smith would live with 2 sacks. And to continue with that, I always talk about like ratios, how that can tilt the game over time. When you look at like the number of sacks our defense has, I didn't write it all out, so you got to kind of bear with me while I do my scrolling and waiting for my pages to load and all of the stuff. And so they have 19 sacks on the season. We have 30 sacks on the season. And we don't have an Aaron Donald on the defensive line. We have a Jerron Reed. And we had a Jones. And we have a Mafe who has more sacks than Aaron Donald. He has 7 sacks. We also just got a Williams who has a sack and a half, I think. We got Witherspoon and... they just got the right tackle, but our opponents have not been able to really hit us a whole bunch. And the Rams haven't really been able to get to the quarterback this year. And we just got a healthy offensive line. So I don't see a reason why our defense, who's just got even better, can't go in, can't take care of this Rams team as far as sack-wise. Because the ratio is, if you think that Geno Smith is under a lot of pressure, our defensive front is actually really dominant when it comes to getting sacks and putting quarterbacks under pressure. And especially compared to this Rams front. And so if Matthew Stafford and the Rams are comparable to the number of sacks that Geno Smith is getting, then remember that Browns and Ravens game? Especially that Ravens game where he's just getting swallowed by a really good pass rushing defense. That might happen to Matt Stafford. Unless, like I said before, he gets a 107 rating in the short passes in the middle of the field. And he's just cooking us. And every time we blitz, he's like, well, there's the open guy. Well, there's the open guy. Well, there's the open guy. All right, we're talking about McVay versus Clint Hurt here. So, that ratio I find fascinating. That the Rams have had been sacked 19 times. And can't get to the quarterback either. But we've gotten to the quarterback 30 times. Another fun stat that I found interesting. Since we're talking about turnovers, since we're talking about sacks, I want to talk about punting. We have punted 18 times, which means that we have turned the ball over 18 times. Our opponents have punted 16 times, which means we have a -2 ratio. And then when we look at the Rams, their opponents have punted 14 times. Sorry, they have punted 14 times and their opponents have punted 17 times, which means that they have a +3 ratio, aka they don't punt the ball, but their teams punt a lot. So when we combine that ratio, the Rams have a combined +5 on us. If you can keep up with me, the likelihood of us punting more than them is incredibly great. This is based off of punt returns, not necessarily total punts. So if they're going to return the ball on us, it's incredibly great. And I would note we've been having trouble on third downs all year. And with this short gain type of throwing attack that the Rams have, and the trouble that the Rams have been having against us, our defense has had against that type of passing attack where it's really short. If we can't stop it, don't expect to have a lot of punt returns. I think I got that backwards. Did I get that? I did. I'm sorry. The Rams have returned 14 punts, which means that opponents have only punted 14 times. Their opponents have returned 17. We have returned 18 punts, and our opponents have returned 16, meaning we have punted 16 times, which means we have a +5 ratio. Fascinating. Well, there you have it. I wonder what that means. Punt returns. Why have the Rams then received so few punt returns? Let's look at kick returns. They have returned 6, and their opponents have returned 7. We have returned 14, and our opponents have returned 12. Fascinating. Maybe we're in higher scoring games? Sorry, I just found a rabbit hole. Found a rabbit hole. What's going on? Opponent 30, 31, 30. They are holding their opponents, except for the 43. We're in a lot of games where the opponents are close to 25 plus to 30. And there are a lot of games where they're holding their opponents to 24 and under. And they only have 2 games that are 30 plus, aka 25 or plus. So they don't have as many kick returns, and they must be having longer drives leading to field goals. Therefore, we're getting more kick returns and fewer and punts, and they're having longer drives and field goals attempts. Which is wasting more time and therefore fewer kick return opportunities, because people are. It must be something like that. That disparity I found really fascinating, because I thought I was following one narrative I had in my head, but sometimes when you're wrong, you're just fucking wrong. Yeah, that's really fascinating. This is why special teams, you got to look at it, because sometimes special teams you'll think one script is going on, and then you realize something else might be going on. We might not see a bunch of touchdowns from the Rams, but remember I said death by 1,000 cuts. We might just see them chew up a ton of clock. Oh, this is going to be an awesome game. I'm very excited to continue to see. And again, this is getting back to Pete Carroll and game planning for Tuesday, and then I'll let you go. I have to watch our turf. I don't have to. I want to watch our turf football from the ladies of, I think no matter what the special teams thinks, that I got in a rabbit hole. Woolen needs to do his job in the blind spot, and we need to take care of the middle of the field so Diggs doesn't have to crash down and he can remain backpedaling and following the wideout or the slot, if there's a slot on the near side, or I guess on the left side hash mark. I don't want him crashing into the middle and the short. Let's just take care of that problem, and let's take care of the short side of the field and take care of the deep. and if they're gonna do it, at least let's make sure they don't get any yak. Tackle the fuck out of them. Hawk tackle. And then when it comes to how they're attacking us, if we can keep their outside linebackers in and block them up with Donald and just wall it in, because they want to spread out and try to get into Geno's spot and force him inside into Donald. So just make sure that they stay inside and leave Geno opportunities to boot out if he wants to open up to our short spots on the right flat. And I think we'll be okay. And then run the fucking rock. Just run the rock. Charbonnet specifically. Run the rock. And we'll sack the shit out of the quarterback by doing that if we can eliminate their short routes and force them to hit their 5th and 7th step. Yeah. I think it's a very simple game plan, but that they know our weakness. We know how they're going to attack us. We know their weakness, because their weakness is we just need to play better. And they have some talent deficiencies on the defense. Not necessarily on the defensive line, but we just need to scheme them better. We know how to play football. We got a good offensive line that's now healthy. Play football better. What do you want me to say? We have a great running back. Normally I say run up the gut. Don't run at Aaron Donald. This time I want you to take those I want you to take those outside linebackers, and I want you to shove them inside of Donald, because he's going to try to pop the pocket like I said that we should try to do against Lamar Jackson. He's going to try to pop the bubble, and those outside linebackers are going to try to crash on the outside. So what I want you to do is I want you to crash them into the bubble pocket and create outside opportunities and outside cone. Make them a triangle in the middle, and then you have both sides of the field available to you. And that's one way to deal with Aaron Donald. And then Geno just will have an angle advantage. So that's how I would game plan for it. And then just run the fuck out of the rock. You know, just do it. Especially since you got Lucas back and he's healthy. You got Disley right there. The two of them are going to... I don't think Bradford's back. But them with Haynes, it's going to be gangbusters. Let's go. Anyways, I appreciate you. Like and subscribe. Also, go check out our turf football. Those girls are great. I'm going to go now. Go Hawks.